We bought the baby monitor 3 months after our daughter was born. It wasn't anything fancy, just a simple, cheap camera with a little screen we kept by our bed. Every night I'd turn the volume down low, just enough to hear the soft rhythm of her breathing. It was comforting, a gentle sound that helped me sleep. But that all changed last week, when it started picking up sounds we just couldn't explain. It began with footsteps, soft, slow, like someone pacing around her crib. At first I thought my wife had gotten up to check on her, but she was right there next to me, fast asleep. Confused, I crept out of bed and hurried to the nursery. The room was empty. The air was still. My daughter was sleeping soundly, completely undisturbed. But when I got back to our room, the monitor showed something else. A dark shape was standing beside her crib, perfectly still. It wasn't breathing, it wasn't moving, it was just there. My wife tried to rationalize it. It must be interference, she said. Maybe another baby monitor from a neighbor's apartment. It made sense, right? To prove her right, and maybe to calm my own racing heart, I went back into the nursery, unplugged the camera, and even took the batteries out of the parent unit. I switched the channel for good measure. The screen went black, as it should. We both let out a sigh of relief, and then a whisper crackled through the speaker. "She's awake." We froze. That voice, it wasn't my wife's. It wasn't mine. It was a man's voice, calm, low, as if he were speaking directly into the microphone. A cold dread washed over me. I bolted into the nursery again, my heart pounding against my ribs. The door, which I had closed, was now slightly ajar. The crib was empty, and there, on the floor, was the unplugged camera, now somehow facing the open window. We immediately called the police. They were thorough, searching our apartment, the hallways, even the grounds outside. But they found nothing. No footprints near the window, no signs of forced entry. The officer finally sighed and said, "It was probably just a signal overlap, sir. These things happen." I pointed out that the monitor had no power. The signal light was off. It shouldn't have been working at all. He just gave me a sympathetic look, like I was a tired, overreacting new parent. The next night I was determined to get proof. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was deeply wrong. I set my phone up to record the monitor screen. For hours there was nothing but blessed silence. The screen stayed black. Then, at exactly 2:13 a.m., it flickered to life. A loud, static hum filled our bedroom. But the image on the screen wasn't our nursery. It was a stark, gray room, empty except for a single wooden chair in the middle. And sitting in that chair was our baby, wide awake, staring directly into the camera. I didn't even think. I just ran. I threw open the door to her room, expecting the worst. But she was there, asleep in her crib, looking peaceful. I stumbled back to my room, my mind reeling. My wife was sitting up in bed, staring at my phone, which was still recording. On the screen, a man walked into the frame of that gray room. We never saw his face. It was always just out of view. He leaned down and whispered, his voice chillingly clear, "She likes the quiet ones." Then he reached a hand toward the camera, and the feed cut out. The next morning, I took the video to the police station. I felt crazy, but I had to show them. The officer who had visited our apartment watched it, his expression shifting from skepticism to concern. Halfway through the video, he paused it and frowned, looking at me intently. "Sir," he asked, "where did you get this monitor?" I told him we'd bought it online about 3 months ago. He exchanged a strange, uneasy look with his partner. "That's impossible," he said. "This particular model was discontinued 8 years ago. We couldn't take it anymore." We threw the monitor away. I took it down to the dumpster myself, buried it under bags of trash, and felt a wave of relief as I walked away. We tried to move on, to forget the whole thing. But the next night, right at 2:13 a.m., my phone screen lit up on my nightstand. The same static hum filled the air. And then, the same voice whispered from its speaker, "She's not in the crib anymore." I scrambled to her room, my blood running cold. The window was wide open, the curtains billowing in the night breeze, and there, on the floor, was the unplugged monitor, its little red power light blinking rhythmically. At the same time, the feed on my phone changed. It was showing me where someone who looked exactly like me, standing over the empty crib, but I was standing in the doorway, frozen in terror. I wasn't there. My wife begged me to see someone. She thought I was breaking down. We ended up in a psychologist's office, recounting the entire unbelievable story. I expected her to laugh, to prescribe medication, but she didn't. She just listened patiently. When I finished, she opened a drawer in her desk and pulled out an old, worn file. "You said you live in apartment 45, she asked quietly. I nodded. She let out a long, heavy sigh. 10 years ago, a couple in that same apartment lost their baby. She disappeared from her crib at 2:13 in the morning. The parents were hysterical. They claimed their baby monitor had turned on by itself. That night I went back down to the dumpster, a sick feeling in my stomach. The monitor was gone. Back in our apartment, I held my wife close, both of us too scared to sleep. At exactly 2:13 a.m., a new app icon appeared on my phone's home screen. It had no name, just a blank white square. Against my better judgment, I tapped it. The video feed opened, showing our bedroom. It showed my wife sleeping beside me. It showed the empty crib, and it showed the monitor, sitting right there on my pillow, its red light flashing. On the screen, a woman in an old-fashioned nurse's uniform leaned into the camera and whispered, "Don't wake her." I smashed my phone against the wall, but the sound didn't stop. The static hum continued, echoing in the room. Then, one final, chilling whisper hung in the air. "She's home now." I looked up, my eyes drawn to a faint glow. The monitor, the one from the trash, the one from my pillow, was on again. This time it was on the dresser across the room, and its camera was pointed directly at me. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more content. Stay safe out there.